Chapter 2. The theory of aggregate production, which is the point of the following book, nevertheless can be much easier adapted to the conditions of a totalitarian state than the theory of production and distribution of a given production put forth under conditions of free competition. Quote by John Maynard Keyes, forward to the German edition of the General Theory, September 7th, 1936. Professor Q, on occult knowledge as the key to power. Throughout history, secure ruling elites arise through secret or occult knowledge which they carefully guard and withhold from outsiders. The power of such elites or cults diminishes as their occult knowledge is transformed into scientific knowledge and vanishes as soon as it becomes common sense. Before analyzing the secrets of the finance capitalist money cult, let us glance for historical perspectives at occult astronomy, the oldest source of stable rule known to man, of which astrology is but the pathetic remnant. As soon as man abandoned the life of wandering tribal hunters to till the soil, they needed to predict the seasons. Such knowledge was required in order to know when to plant, when to expect floods in fertile valleys, when to expect rainy seasons, and so on. Months of back-breaking work were wasted by the unavailability of the calendar, a convenience we take for granted. The men who first studied and grasped the regularities of sun, moon, and stars that presage the season had a valuable commodity to sell, and they milked it to the fullest at the expense of the credulous fellow men. The occult priesthoods of early astronomers and mathematicians, such as the designers of Stonehenge, convinced their subjects that they alone had contact with the gods, and thus they alone could assure the return of planting seasons and weather favorable to bountiful harvests. The predicting or staging of solar and lunar eclipses was particularly effective in awing the community. The general successes resulting from following the priesthood's tilling, planting, nurturing, and harvest timetables ensured the priesthood's power. Today, Christmas holiday season continues the tradition set by ancient priesthoods, who conducted rituals on the winter solstice to reverse the retreat of the sun from the sky. Their invariable success was followed by wild celebrations. Popular knowledge of seasonal regularities was discouraged by every manner of mysticism and outlandish ritual imaginable. Failures in predictions were blamed on sins of the people and used to justify intensified oppression. For centuries, people who had literally no idea of the numbers of days between seasons and couldn't count anyway cheerfully gave up a portion of their harvests, as well as their most beautiful daughters, to their faithful servants in the priesthood. The power of our finance capitalist money cult rests on a similar secret knowledge, primarily in the field of economics. Our power is weakened by real advances in economic science. However, we established money lords have been able to prolong and even reverse our decline by systematically corrupting economic science with fallacious and spurious doctrines. Through our power in the universities, publishing, and mass media, we have been able to reward the sincere, professional cranks whose spurious doctrines happen to rationalize in terms of common good, the government-supported institutions, laws, and economic measures upon which our money powers depend. Keynesianism is the highest form of phony economics yet developed to our benefit. The highly centralized mixed economy resulting from the politics advocated by Lord Keynes for promoting prosperity has all the characteristics required to make our rule invulnerable to our twin nemesis: real private competition in the economic arena and real democratic process in the political arena. Laissez-faire or free market. Classical economics was our original attempt to corrupt economic science. Its beautiful internal consistency blinded economics for many years to the fact that it had virtually nothing to do with current reality. However, we are so powerful today that it is no longer possible to conceal our imposing institutions with the appearances of free competition. Keynesianism rationalizes this omnipotent state which we require, while retaining the privileges of private property, on which our power ultimately rests. Although the interim reforms advocated by Marx in his Communist Manifesto, such as central banking, income tax, and other centralizing measures, can be corrupted to coincide exactly with our requirements, we no longer allow Marxist movements major power in developed countries. Our coercive and institutions are already in place. Any real steps toward communism would mean our downfall. Of course, phony Marxism is an excellent ideological veil in which to cloak our puppet dictators in underdeveloped areas. Secondarily, the power of the lords of money rests on an occult knowledge in the area of politics and history. We have quite successfully corrupted these sciences. Although many people are familiar with our secrets through such books as 1984 by the disillusioned George Orwell, few take them seriously and usually dismiss such ideas as paranoia. Since real politics is motivated by individual self-interest, history is viewed most accurately as a struggle for power and wealth. We do our best to obscure this self-evident truth by popularizing the theory that history is made by the impersonal struggles between ideas, political systems, ideology, races, and classes. Through systematic infiltration of all major intellectual, political, and ideological organizations, using the lure of financial support and instant publicity, we have been able to set the limits of public debate within the ideological requirements of our money power. This so-called left-right political spectrum is our creation. In fact, it accurately reflects our careful artificial polarization of the population on phony issues that prevents the issues of our power from arising in their minds. The left supports civil liberties and opposes economic or entrepreneurial liberty. The right supports economic liberty and opposes civil liberty. Of course, neither can exist fully, which is our goal, without the other. We continue the right-left conflict such that both forms of liberty are suppressed to the degree we require our own liberty rests on legal or moral rights, but on our control of the government bureaucracy and courts, which apply the complex subjective regulations we dupe the public into supporting for our benefit. Innumerable meaningless conflicts to divert the attention of the public from our operations find fertile grounds in the bitter hatreds of the right-left imbroglio. Right and left are irreconcilable on racial policy, treatment of criminals, law enforcement, pornography, foreign policy, women's liberty, and censorship, to names of just a few issues. Although censorship in the names of fairness has been useful in broadcasting and may yet be required in journalism, we generally do not take sides in these issues. Instead, we attempt to prolong the conflicts by supporting both sides as required. War, of course, is the ultimate diversionary conflict in the health of our system. War provides the perfect cover of emergency and crisis behind which we consolidate our power. Since nuclear war presents dangers even to us, more and more we have resorted to economic crises, energy shortages, ecological hysteria, and managed political drama to fill the gap. Meaningless brushfire wars, though, remain useful. We promote phony free enterprise on the right and phony democratic socialism on the left. Thus we obtain a free enterprise whose competition is carefully regulated by the bureaucracy we control and whose nationalized enterprise are controlled directly through our government. In this way, we maintain a society in which the basis of our power, legal titles, to property and money remains secure, but in which the peril of free, unregulated competition is avoided, and popular sovereignty is nullified. The democratic process is a sitting duck for our money power. Invariably, we determine the candidates of major parties and then proceed to pick the winners. Any attempts at campaign reform simply put the rules of the game more firmly under our government's control. Totalitarianism of the fascist or communist varieties is no danger to us as long as bastions of private property remain to serve as our base of operation. Totalitarian governments of both right and left, because of the vulnerability of their highly visible leaders to party rivals, can be manipulated easily from abroad. Primarily totalitarian dictatorships effectively prevent new money lords that could challenge our power from arising in a whole continent, civilizations, and races. Perhaps a few words on ideology proper are in order before I conclude. The only valid ideology, of course, is rational egoism. That is, the maximization of the individual's gratification by whatever means prove practical. This requires power over nature, especially when possible, power over other humans who are the most versatile and valuable tools of all. Fortunately, we do not have a society of egoists. Money lords would be impossible in such a society, as the mental spooks and rationalizations by which we characteristically manipulate and deceive would be a laughing stock. Under such circumstances, a policy of live and let live, or true laissez-faire anarchy, might be the only alternative. Certainly, a hierarchical order would be difficult to maintain by force alone. However, in the current era, while minds are yet in the thrall of altruistic, collectivistic, and divine moralistic spooks, the egoist's rational course is to utilize such spooks to control others. The next speaker, Professor M., will detail the key institution of our power, central banking.